Hey gang, and welcome back. This week we're going to look at another edition from Commander 2011. This is Riku of Two Reflections. Costing 2 colorless, 1 blue, 1 red, and 1 green, we get a 2/2 human wizard with probably the most versatile set of abilities any Temur commander has. His first ability triggers whenever you cast an instant or a sorcery by allowing you to play 1 blue and 1 red. If you do, you get to copy it, and, if you want, choose new targets for it. His second ability, which cares about whenever a creature that isn't a token comes into the battlefield, allows us to pay 1 green and 1 blue to put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of that creature. In a format that allows us to play spells and creatures that generate huge amounts of value, Riku of Two Reflections is the general you want to play if you want to take it one step further. Being in blue, red, and green, we get a ton of great spells, great creatures, and lots of ramp. So, with that in mind, let's look at some cards we want to add into our deck to play Riku. I'm not going to tell you what artifact ramp package to run, because a lot of the times everyone's going to run Soul Ring, and not everyone can afford Mana Crypt or Mana Vault, so the few that I would recommend are Simic Signet and Izzet Signet. My reasoning behind this is very simple. For only 1 colorless mana, you're able to tap the Izzet Signet for Riku's first ability, blue and red, in order to copy spells. Similarly, the Simic Signet can do the same, but for his second ability, which is for creatures. But there are still a ton of artifacts that you should consider running in Riku. Strionic Resonator allows us to copy Riku's ability for 2 colorless, whether it's to copy a creature or a spell, or, should Riku not be on the field, it allows us to pay 2 colorless mana to copy and enter the battlefield effect. However, if you're like me and stingy with your mana, Panharmonicon, not to be confused with a Necronomicon, is a great addition to any Riku deck, or frankly any deck that has creatures with enter the battlefield effects. For the low investment of 4 mana, we're basically able to double any triggers whenever a creature or an artifact enters the battlefield. This means if you have Riku out and Panharmonicon out, and cast Acidic Slime and then copy it with Riku's ability, you get not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 choices of artifact, lands, or enchantment destruction with your clones. That's really good. Since we have access to Temur colors, we have access to some of the strongest enchantments in the game. One of the most powerful options for Riku, of course, is Sneak Attack. Since Riku's ability doesn't care if you cast the creature, only that the creature coming into play is not a token, you're able to pay 1 red, 1 blue, and 1 green to get 2 copies of a creature coming from your hand into play. Now, unfortunately this copy doesn't have haste, but at the same time it no longer has that forced sacrifice effect at the end of your turn. If you're looking for even more ridiculous synergy, add Flame Shadow Conjuring to the mix. For an additional red, you're able to copy that creature once more, and it also has haste. This means for the low cost of double red, green, and blue, we have 3 creatures on the field. Sure, one of them has to be exiled, one of them has to be sacrificed, and one of them stays as a token, but that's very good for only 4 mana. If you want to make things even more ridiculous, add in Parallel Lives, Doubling Season, or Primal Vigor to turn things up to 11. Next, we'll look at some instant and sorceries that'll do well in a Riku of Two Reflections deck. First and foremost, Riku likes to copy things. So, with that in mind, why not run things that copy things by themselves, which we can then copy to make copies of the copies of the copies of the copies. Take for instance, Reverberate and Twincast. 2 very good spells by themselves. Thanks to Riku, instead of doubling your spells, you can add a 3rd copy. You can also play a lot of really fun spells that allow you to steal other people's creatures. Bribery, for instance, is a great way to use Riku's ability, since Riku's ability doesn't care if you cast the creature, just so long that it comes under play under your control. Similarly, Gather Specimens is a great spell to resolve just before an opponent's able to play his combo creature. Not only do you steal the creature, you have the opportunity to create a token clone of it. Spelljack is another fun card that allows you to steal an opponent's sorcery, instant, or creature spell, since you're able to exile it and then cast it for yourself. Unfortunately, it has a very steep cost of 6 mana, plus you have to pay for the spell itself later on, but I still think this is an interesting card to consider for a Riku deck. Mystical Tutor and Worldly Tutor are 2 great cards to run in most decks that can run them. Riku of Two Reflections is no exception. However, be warned, if you pay the blue and the red to copy these spells, you will lose the first card you find and put on top of your library. That being said, despite the fact that we can't clone them, oftentimes paying 1 blue or 1 green to find an instant or sorcery or creature respectively is more than enough of a reason to run these in our deck. Now let's look at some creatures. Since Riku is able to make easy clones in the forms of tokens, most of the creatures we want to run have strong enter the battlefield effects. Cards like Frost Titan, Zealous Conscript, Solemn Simulacrum, and frankly anything with a powerful enter the battlefield effect is probably worth considering for this deck. If you want to make things even more ridiculous, a card like Diluvian Primordial, which you can then copy, allows you to cast opponent spells from their graveyards, which you can then copy those, and as a result, get a lot of fun things. You can also run a sub-theme of clones. This allows you to not only steal your opponent's creatures, but also be able to outnumber them. Have you ever been envious of an opponent's Grave Titan? Well, at the end of turn, flash in Stunt Double and pay the extra cost from Riku to be able to get 2 Grave Titans and 4 zombie tokens. Now I'm sure you're thinking a lot of these creatures rely on the fact that Riku's on the field, so let's look at one that doesn't need Riku. Progenitor Mimic, or Riku 2.0 as I like to call him, is a great way to clone a creature and, on every upkeep, gain an additional copy of that creature. Unfortunately, you can't copy the tokens Progenitor Mimic makes, but that doesn't mean it's not worth running. I would also advocate running Phyrexian Metamorph and Clever Impersonator, who can double either as a clone of a creature, in which case you can copy it with Riku, or provide you with a valuable way to copy an artifact or a permanent. Because let's not forget, in EDH, oftentimes adaptability is king. You can also play around with the wonderful effect of Evoke. Muldrifter, probably the poster child of all Evoke creatures, is a great addition to our deck. Yes, if you evoke the creature and pay Riku's ability, you're still paying 5 mana, but you're drawing 4 cards as opposed to 2. Plus, you're still left with the token, so that's not too bad. There's not much that I would recommend for lands, mostly just focus on being able to have a lot of lands that tap for more than one color. Command Tower, Reflecting Pool, Frontier Bivouac. Riku's ability is very color hungry, so you always want to make sure that you're able to cast the spell you want, plus still have access to being able to copy it if you need. Anyway gang, I hope you enjoyed my take on Riku of Two Reflections. If you like copying creatures or spells, Riku is definitely the deck for you. Please be sure to tune back in every Monday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a new primer, top 10, or gameplay video. As always, please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and if you're looking for other ways to support the channel, please feel free to check out my Patreon account with the link below. Thanks for watching!